right, just want to let everybody know we're going to record this for marketing purposes to allow others that could not join to watch this. I hope that's okay with everyone. And unfortunately, it also means that you have to look at me the whole time, which I'm self-conscious about, but we'll get through that. This is the second of two demos for our Executives on Roster 2.0 to showcase a new platform that we've developed, as well as some improvements to our service model, and excited really to share this with everyone and to show off some of the really hard work that the team behind the scenes here has put in to get where we are today. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Ian McClure, the Executive Director of the Office of Technology Commercialization at the University of Kentucky. We have people here who are familiar with Executives on Roster and our history in building this and getting it to where it is now, and others that are not so familiar. So I'm going to take just the first few minutes to provide some context for those that are not familiar about why we're doing this presentation today of an XOR 2.0, and then we'll get into showing you guys the magic of what we have and why we're pretty excited about where Executives on Roster is headed. All right, so just for contextual purposes, Executives on Roster was launched with a number of founding institutions that I'll show in a minute 3 years ago in 2018. It took us about a year to build it. And ultimately, it was born out of a couple of realizations. The first of which is the increase in entrepreneurial activity of our fantastic founding or faculty researchers. And importantly, it's being driven not just by the tech transfer offices that are spinning out more startups and focusing more on developing startup companies, but also because our faculty are realizing that they want to engage in entrepreneurial activity and they want to be entrepreneurs, and they're being more entrepreneurial. Some of this empirical data here from some articles has evidence that it's positive for their professional development, for their careers, for the institution. Those faculty researchers that are engaged in this type of activity and disclosing and patenting and founding companies are more productive than their collaborators. They might be 12 times more likely to be among the highest cited in their field. Importantly, for those of you like me that are in the tech transfer office, 85% of those faculty founders return to their institution after stepping out and founding a company. And that's important because, frankly and intuitively, our faculty want to be faculty. They are good at being researchers, and so they return to what they're best at in most cases, whether it's because their startup fails or because that's simply what they wanted to do all along and someone else has stepped in. That's an important realization that we made in getting to where we are. And so, of course, given some of those intangibles, we've seen a large uptick in startups development from universities, two times the number over the last 10 years. We're at 1,200 startups per year now. 7 out of 10 of those remain in the state of their incubating institution, and that's important for some of the things we'll talk about today, whereas proximity to talent pools is important for many of us. And some of the problems that we're trying to solve with XOR are exacerbated by sometimes where the companies tend to remain. And also, one thing that we've noted at UK is that many to most, and in our case, less than 10%, 4 out of 55 companies that have been successful at getting non-dilutive capital, like SBIR funds, have been unsuccessful at getting follow-on private funding. And, in large part, it's not because the technology is not up to snuff. And in many cases of those SBIRs, they met their milestones from the technical aspects. It's really because of the makeup of the team, the experience, the business experience, the entrepreneurial fundraising experience of the people that are leading these startups. And of course, this is not anything completely new. According to CB Insights and surveys that they've conducted, not the right team is the third most prevalent reason that startups fail. And of course, 90% of investors believe the quality of the management team is the single most important non-financial factor when evaluating returns on investment. So the makeup of the team, the talent and experience of that team is important. So we got together with a number of other of you and institutions that are commonly situated in this mess and realized, hey, we have networks of innovation experienced people. The University of Kentucky has over 100,000 people in what we would consider innovation centers. And based on a few hours on LinkedIn, we realized a lot of these people are entrepreneurs, and they are perhaps even serial entrepreneurs, and would be of interest if we could connect with them better. So in 2018, we worked hard with a group of universities shown here that were a part of the founding group that helped develop the Executives on Roster and launch it in the fall of 2018. We did it with two regional platforms, a Midwest platform and a Southeast platform. At the time, under consideration that maybe regional proximity was going to benefit or play a role here in the matching process. We did it with 25 universities. We launched with a critical mass of 71 entrepreneurs. Many of those were referred or provided by those founding institutions from within their networks. And we launched with 56 startups. So of course, we wanted and needed to grow from that, and we did. So we doubled the size essentially of XOR over 2+ years. We're now at over 100 startups. We have 46 universities that have access to XOR and 177 executives. So we've been active in growing it, which is promising, right? More and more people are realizing this need. We've also found some success through XOR, and this is not an exhaustive list of the number of matches, but through XOR, we have been able to match some of the executives with some of the startups. Not every startup has found a match within the platform, but we've also realized that the needs demonstrated to match change over time. And sort of the static position of I need a match now changes both for executives and for startups. And so we've been successful, though, in finding at the right time matches for some of the startups in the platform. And that's gained momentum just over the past year or so. In the first year, I think we had a couple of matches. We were excited about that. But over the last year and a half or so, we've executed about 6 matches. So the wheels are spinning, and we're getting better because we have learned a lot about the process and about how to make just a simple two-way visibility marketplace work for us in this process. Specifically, if we're serious about this, we've learned that it requires administrative support to support the onboarding process, the training of how to do this. It's not just sort of using a search tool. It's actually the recruiting process and brokering those introductions it gets tricky, and understanding actual needs versus needs demonstrated on an application that you can see on someone's profile. Quicker response and support, QCing the profiles to make sure that they look as good as they can to be attractive. And on the recruiting and matching support side, this is where we realized really we needed some additional help. The two biggest ones are recruiting new executives to the platform, and then the needs intake meetings, both on the executive side and the startup side. Somebody that can help meet with the executives as they get into the platform and on a rolling basis to make sure that we know exactly what their expectations are, what they're really seeking: part-time, full-time, advisory role, actual CEO role. And then on the startup side, given their timing, are they actually ready for matching right now? Or do they just need an advisor at this time? Those kind of things. So we need somebody that's a team that is willing to and experienced enough to meet with those people, gather those needs, and then make them work for us in the matching process, and support the tech transfer offices in that process. So as it turns out, we also realized that the regions really are limiting. We had many executives wanting to be on both platforms, and people reaching across platforms to do matches. And so we realized that one single platform, especially now in the last year where we've gone virtual as a world, and barriers, regional barriers have been sort of broke down a little bit. We're now moving to one single large platform where we can all play ball together. So that's where we've been, and now we're at XOR 2.0. And so based on some of the things we learned, remember we talked a couple of months ago about why we were doing this transition. We need to build out the service model and improve the functionality and simplicity of the platform to increase the ability to search easily and to onboard easily. So powered by the Accelerator Network, which is a NIH, NIGMS grant funded initiative. We are we have rebuilt a new platform and have new management to oversee that growth in this next step of executive talent recruiting for university startups. So our service model goals, our new service model goals are to make sure that we have the ability to provide onboarding support. So when you have a new startup to put into the platform, or when a new university member joins the platform, we have support for training, some hand holding and QCing the profile building process, making sure that the right information is in those profiles, because based on our experience now of seeing what executives actually look at and what they want to see, knowing kind of what information should be in there, that's part of the new service model. New executive intake meetings. So the actually meeting with executives, not just reviewing a profile or an application and saying, yep, I think on paper they look good, but meeting with them and having a discussion about their expectations and their goals for using the platform, their time availability at that time. Those things are all things that we would like to find out sooner in the process, so we can use it in the curation and filtering in the searching, and not later in the process when we've actually brokered and those things come out. New startup intake meetings. So when you add new startups to the platform, we want to be able to sit down with you and the startup and help understand the actual needs, and not just rely on what the startup puts into their startup profile form. So we've learned that is very important, so we can match expectations and not just sort of industry experience and those things, but actual time availability and expectations are things that are really important to match, the intangibles as we're calling them. Search and curation supports, and then match support, of course. We needed to really bolster the ability to broker some matches and handhold a bit in that process with experienced staff. So we've built out a service model team. Fortunately, again, I mentioned the Accelerator Network, NIH grant-funded initiative. We are capitalizing on that program and that initiative and those funds to help us build out the team, and that's part of the reason for this transition, because we had that opportunity to do that, which really allows us to sort of jump forward with this model and this platform and provide some of this more robust support. Miriam Gorgian, which many of you have already interacted with, she's been sort of the administrator of the XOR platform since its inception, has been fantastic and has been doing this by herself within my office for some time now to help support you guys in making this work. But now she's going to have a lot of help, which is fantastic. And so some of the names here, Liz Knapp, Natalie Thurston, Vera Anderson, are all people who have put in hours to rebuild this platform, think through the service model, and we'll be here to help in this. And of course, yes, we want to grow this team. And so you see the TBD, additional support, match support. Those are additional staff that we have on the horizon with goals to add to the staffing process. Our platform goals, part of the goals that we're focusing on in this transition are really to simplify and make more functional. The first version of XOR was built with Wellspring, which was a platform that some of us are familiar with because we use it for our knowledge management system to manage our agreements and IP for our offices. Unfortunately, we also learned that it's a fairly complex platform because there's so much in it. And then when trying to sort of transition it a bit or massage it a bit to work for something like this, it was a bit too busy and provided some difficulties in actually using it just for simple two-way search. And so we wanted to create just simplicity in that process, and then also add intangibles to the platform. So what we realized is the XOR 1.0 was good at providing on the startup side, startup history and experience of where they are right now, but not necessarily some of the intangibles like what are their current expectations and goals and timeline and things. And then on the executive side, same thing. We really wanted to make sure that the profiles to help in the curation and matching identification process includes the intangibles like expectations, time availability, desired roles, and those kind of things. So I want to take a step here and exit out of this, and I'm going to go to our platform. So hopefully you can see now the new XOR platform homepage here, or landing page. This is our executive on rosters webpage from the Accelerator Network website. And if I'm going to be entering, I'm going to log in just like we would. And first, I'm going to log in as an executive. So we have two types of logins, right? It's a two-way marketplace. We've got executives on one side that would log in, and the tech transfer offices and or their startups that would log in on the other side. All right, the executives dashboard allows for one simple step to be taken in this platform, which is I want to search for startups, right? So from the executive dashboard, I'm gonna be taken to a search form with many fields of search criteria that allow me to build a report of what I'm looking for. And this is based on a lot of feedback. Over the last couple of years, we've talked with a lot of our executives. What are the main things that you really want to see? And especially when you're curating a report, building a report of those things you actually want to find, what are the main things you prioritize? So we have 5 fields that an executive can search for. The first is affiliated university. And so here we have in it all of the current XOR members that have access to the platform. So if they wanted to search startups that are affiliated with a certain university, they can do that. And I'll just pick, for the purpose of this demo, the University of Kentucky. The next thing that they can search for is type of talent. And so we've increased the number of things they can search for. And this is, again, based on feedback both from startups and from executives that we wanted to go broader than just chief executive officer, chief operating officer, but we've added things like sales leads and officers, medical officers, marketing, technical support, reimbursement, regulatory, security, privacy officer, business development, and then just advisor. You can click advisor if you're just looking for someone to play a long-term advisory role or board advisory role. I'll click chief executive officer here. The next thing you can search for is a startup's stage of development. We have created and defined 5 different stages to keep this somewhat easy and to create sort of larger buckets within which startups can identify and filter into. The 5 stages are pre-stage, stage 0, which would be intellectual property disclosed, early stage, so patents have been filed, advanced stage, patents have been licensed and an entity has been incorporated, validation studies have been performed, and then at company stage, which is we're a little bit beyond that, and now we actually have commercialization strategy in process. Customer discovery has been completed, and we understand customer interest and those kind of things. So you can choose any one of these stages if you would like. I'll pick company stage for the purpose here. The next thing is the startup's industry area. We have a check the box form that allows an executive to check more than one box. We have many fields here, again, based on feedback and some customer discovery pilots that we ran around what are the best boxes to try to fit certain niche industries within. So you can click on any of those. And then finally, startup name. If an executive really wants to search for a particular startup that they've heard of or know is in the platform, they can do that. So I will search for my report here, and then my report has built all companies that are related to the University of Kentucky are seeking a chief executive officer and are at the company stage. And here you've got your list, and I can search through here. The report shows columns. We've got the logo, the name. We have the state and the university, because in some of the cases we've identified some companies are incorporated in a state that's different from their incubating institution state. Development stage, the talent needed, the industry area, and then funding received, something we've added here to help identify in the early curation process, to identify which of these in this report I might want to click on. You can look and see if any of these has raised some type of funding. And you can see a lot of these are empty on the right because this is a new field that we're having startups fill out. So I'm going to click on this top one, Avast, just because I'm familiar with them as a University of Kentucky company. Avast Therapeutics, this is their profile page. So we've got on the left-hand side, we start with, if they have a website, you can click on it, and that'll take you to the Avast Therapeutics website. If they have an actual URL for their website. Location, we start with these organizing headers. And so these orange organizing headers allow us to kind of compartmentalize for the executive what type of information they're looking at now. Startup history. And so the first thing is kind of where's the company been? Have they licensed patents from the university yet? Have they raised some type of funding? In this case, Avast Therapeutics has raised SBIR, NIH, SBIR funds. And then do they have any patents? And then we've allowed for evidencing if any intellectual property does exist, the ability to upload a document, because in many cases, you might have a docket, right? So you might manage that portfolio via a spreadsheet export from Sophia or from something else. And so we've allowed for the ability to include a document with multiple pieces of information as you would like them portrayed about that intellectual property. Startup description would be next. So the next organizing header allows us to dig a little bit deeper into just describing what the company is doing, their stage of development, a non-technical description of what they're doing, the elevator pitch, description of the product concept, the value proposition, as you might say, what is the advantage here over alternative technologies, and then ability to provide anything further, anything else that you would like the executive to know about the company. Scrolling back to the top, and then the last one is accelerator program. Have they participated in any entrepreneurial coaching, accelerator, incubator type programs, which allows that's something we've added via executive input. They wanted to know, are these coachable founders? Are they endeavoring to learn about the process? Those kind of things. So the next is startup needs. And this is really where we've added information about the intangibles. So we've really trying to dig into what are the expectations of the startup here? What are they really kind of looking for? Not just sort of a labeling of the talent that they need, but they can provide a job description. They can provide more description about what it is they really want, not just any CEO, but one that can raise funds in the next 6 months, or one that can manage, a grant or something like that. They could indicate, are they seeking to apply for any additional federal funds like SBIR? Is something that comes up quite often. So we've added that in particular. And then we've added, of course, the ability to download a pitch or upload a pitch deck. So if I'm the executive, I can click on that. It'll download that down here. I can look at the pitch deck. That's probably the most critical piece of information on these pages. And so we've allowed that for easy click and download. The last thing is just the startup contact information. You can provide the founder information if you would like, or you can, as we would or have in almost every case at the University of Kentucky, you can provide for the contact to be just the member of the technology transfer office through which you would like the executive to reach out to talk more about that startup. So that's general profile for these. I'm going to take us back to our reports. So going back to our report, I wanted to indicate a couple of things that helps in the curation process that we've added. So I'm going to map out of some of these criteria and take us back to sort of our overall reports. So all startups are now in here, and you can see that some have logos, some don't. But scrolling down to the very bottom of the page, you can change the number of startups that you see in this report. I can see 10 per page, 25, or the whole shebang. Here we have 83 startup records that are currently in the platform, and we're additionally doing QC of those profiles now. And we'll be asking you to also do that for your startups, of course. One thing I wanted to point out is I can filter some of these rows because they need filtering if I'm looking maybe in some prioritization of what I'm looking for. The thing that's probably going to be used the most is development stage. And so we've allowed for searching development stage you can filter it so that if I really wanted to just start looking at everything pre-stage first and then get to the more advanced or mature ones, you can do that. And so now these are filtered by development stage, starting with pre-stage. And it makes sense that most of the pre-stage ones would not have logos because they don't actually have company identification yet or branding. And I can scroll down and now you see a few pre-stage that have logos before I get to the next stage of companies, which would be early stage here, this bottom one. So I can filter that way. I can do the same thing with the university, the state. And so I can filter, if I have any prioritization, I can filter those that way. Okay, I'm going to take us back to our dashboard. I'm going to log out and I'm going to enter back in as one of you. All right, I'm going to sign in as a TTO. Okay, the TTO dashboard has a few more things that we can do. We can search for startups or executives. You will not have the ability to edit any of those profiles. But if I want to see other startups and how they're demonstrating information in the platform, remember all of this information is non-confidential, including the pitch deck information. Keep that in mind. So I could look at other startup profiles if I would like, but the thing we're going to do most of the time is we're going to search for our executives. And so I'm going to click on the executive report. And here I can find all of our executives that are in the platform. Some have profile photos, some don't. We're encouraging our executives to add photos or at least publicly available ones from like their LinkedIn. So we have 5 criteria, search criteria again. And this is based on feedback from doing this now for a couple of years and running some pilots for customer discovery. The first is state. If we do care about proximity or being within the state, I can search by state and click on one of those. The next is, of course, perhaps the most important, which is significant experience and knowledge. The executives have all indicated in their applications and in our conversations with them through the intake meetings, the industries in which they are experienced or have knowledge. And you can click on more than one here if you want to build a report for any single one or lots. I'm going to click on drug development here to make it simple. Desired role. And so this is another thing. If I'm a startup and I'm looking for someone who actually is interested in the role that I'm looking for, we've added more than just CEO and COO and CFO against the same desired roles I showed earlier, all the way down to advisory. If I'm looking for an advisory board member, I can click on that as well and only find the executives that have indicated they're interested in that kind of a role. I'm going to click on Chief Executive Officer. And then also I can search by name. If I've been referred by somebody or I've heard somebody is in here, I can search by name if I would like. So those are the fields. I'm going to build my my report here, and I've made it simple. In fact, I'm going to make it not as simple because I'm going to search for everyone that's related to drug development in here, just to show that we have a lot of people in here related to drug development. And I can scroll down and I can search, I can see the fields in which they're experienced in and see the roles that they've indicated they're desiring. I'm going to click on James Massett just because I know James related here in Kentucky. So this is a profile page of our executives. They can curate these pages and QC them. We've actually touched base with all of the executives that are in the platform and asked them to update their information. We've also provided new fields of information for them, like the intangibles, their expectations and goals. And we've asked them to additionally add that information to the platform. So they're doing that live now. We asked them just a couple of days ago to do that. And so they're live doing that as we speak. So here's James's profile. We start with personal information. You can see if they've been referred by any member institution, they can indicate that. They don't have to. Remember, we started by requiring that executives were referred, but then we realized we're limiting some of the talent that we'd really love to be finding out there. So they can indicate, which helps, if they note that they've been referred by some university, they've worked with a single university before. If that's on their profile page, I can call the TTO that referred them and say, hey, have you worked with James before? How did that go? And that helps in the matching process. LinkedIn profile is big. If I click on James's LinkedIn profile, it takes me to his profile, which is helpful. And so almost all of our executives have provided LinkedIn profiles if they have one. They can additionally provide a resume or CV, so more information that maybe you can't find on a LinkedIn. If I wanted to do this, I can click on it and see more about James and how he characterizes himself on a CV. James's current title, what they're doing now. Then we get to the organizing header of experience. This is where we get into everything that James has done to date. Has he raised money? What startups has he raised money for? Description of the funds raised, description of executive roles he's played, what fields he's has significant experience or knowledge in. James is an incredibly experienced person. He's a 20-year executive with Cisco Systems, and he's been around the block, serial entrepreneur type. Fantastic for this kind of a role also. Opportunity to describe more about that experience. And then we get into the intangibles, the goals and expectations. This is, again, the things that we're asking our executives to add to the platform. You can look into their expectations. Are they willing to assume a part-time, full-time advisory role? Which in particular executive role, he's noted CEO. And then they can put more about their additional goals, and they can describe more, which allows more context for us in the matching process. Whether they would relocate, they can indicate that, or do both virtually. Of course, we've added that now, given the state of the world. And then they can add, we will attach the application that they would fill out with more information as it was reflected as they wrote the information. And then they can attach other files if there's something they've written, an article, a publication that they want to share. So that's what every profile is going to look like. And we're adding more of that intangible information, which really helps the matching process. And of course, in the report building process, we've made this about as simple as we can. Really identifying the things that we care most about is what role are they desiring, and what is their significant experience and knowledge. Those are the two things that we can hone in on, and we can get more specific by using these criteria fields and punching more or less of them. And really, this has simplified incredibly the search process compared with the version 1.0, and we really hope that this is going to help us. All right. We've already shown that the startup report building here is no different than what you saw from the executive view, from their dashboard. The other thing I want to show is that we've added is, and we talked about this when we built XOR 1.0, but we wanted to kind of manage the process, and we talked about putting the application forms in an online version that sort of auto-populate and provide notifications, but we've done that now. And so we've created an online startup form that allows you to easily create new profiles for your startups. When you populate this form, it will auto-populate the profiles. This is way easier than what we had before, where you had to manually fill out stuff, and then especially the executive applications had to manually fill out an application and then additionally build a profile in the system. And so this is all the information that you saw in in your startup profile page. You fill out this information. You can type in these fields or pick from drop downs where we've provided, like the company stage with the definitions. And then you will attach the files you want to, from pitch deck, your logo, if you have one, published patents, job description, if you have one, and you hit submit. What happens next is a notification will go to the XOR administrative team. And that team will then reach out and ask for an intake meeting so that we can meet with the new startup and the TTO and have a discussion around the needs, around the timing of those needs. Is this an urgent thing? Is it for an SBIR 51% PI? Is this, what's the purpose? Those kind of things. So then when we can help with the matching, we will have already, and we have talked with all of these executives. We have a lot of sort of insights just on the conversations that the XOR team is having. And so we can better help you find the right people based on those expectations and current needs. And that's the service model that we're adding. So it's as easy as that. I'm going to take us back out to the homepage, and I'm going to flip us back to here, which is just our next steps. So where we are. So we've rebuilt the platform. added a lot of focus to the service model and the service team. And we're pretty excited about where we can go from now. I think, we said if we had a few matches, we'd be excited when we launched this thing. We successfully did that. We've gained momentum in that as that snowball has begun to roll a little bit. And now I'm really excited about how we can additionally support the matching process and get more of these things done as we get more intentional about making sure that our university startups are equipped with the type of experienced talent that they need. Next steps. So what we're looking for now, almost all of you, if you're current members, your membership with XOR through the Wellspring platform has lapsed as of the very end of last year. We tried to match this transition up with that renewal process. For new members that are not current XOR members, we'll be looking for membership commitments. We have a brief user license that is no different than any kind of online platform user license. An invoicing process. The membership fees have not changed at all. The beauty of this is that we're growing the capabilities and the team around XOR because of the Accelerator Network grant initiative and those funds. And we can now build out that team without having to increase any of the yearly fees. Still $2,500 annual XOR fee to have access and to utilize the platform and gain the benefit of the service model too. We'll provide the login credentials once we have a user license executed. And then we'll provide the onboarding support, the new profile building for any new startups, startup intake meetings, that process, and let's match. That's where we are now. And so those communications will be coming out from me most likely in the next couple of weeks. So I'll stop there. And I know that most of you have been very, very politely on mute for 40 minutes, which is tough, I know, for all of us, but I'm happy to take any questions. You can provide them in the chat, and we'll try to field any kind of questions that might arise now. We'll also, I'm happy to have one-on-one discussions to answer any questions as well afterwards.
Hey, Ian.
Yes.
Bob Silva at Ohio University. What's the renewal commitment? What's the fee?
So it's the same fee of $2,500 per year. That's what all XOR members to date have been paying. I know we had the Ovals group, and so we'll talk, Bob, about that group and whether that's still a commitment that as an Ovals group we want to make. But that's the annual fee.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. I think, Jackie, I might need your help in asking any questions that come in.
Okay, yes, we have a question. To be clear, the TTO enters the info on the initial startup form. Is that correct? That's correct, yes. You can, we have provided the ability, again, if the TTO would like to delegate that user credential to the startup itself, you can. And we'll provide the ability just by an additional login credential to your startup to build those profiles yourself. We have assumed that the TTO would like to be a part of that process, but in some cases we understand if a startup, if you trust your startup to do it the right way, you can do that too. Okay, and we have another question. When will the Southeast and Midwest platforms through Wellspring fully transition to the new platform where they're no longer available to access?
Yeah, so the Wellspring platform is still alive for the foreseeable future because there are actually a few XOR memberships that have not lapsed and still just based on when they renewed and onboarded through, I think, middle of this year. And so I think the plan is for the Wellspring platform, by the way, is still live for those people who are still on it and using it, and at the service model, and we still have access to it the same way we always have. And so our service model will be no different for those that are still on that platform and using it under their current annual license. And so there won't be much of an interruption there. And so by the middle of the year, though, we would expect all of those to have lapsed and renewals would come to this platform.
There are no other questions at this point.
Right. Well, look, I appreciate everybody's attention and following us through this process. we're excited about where this process can go. Again, it's all about getting more intentional and trying to have a tool and some support in our tech transfer recruiting efforts as we try to match more talent with our startups to increase our startup survival rates and their ability to raise private funding and find more success. So thanks again. Feel free to reach out to me at ian.mcclure@uky.edu if you have questions and or want an individual conversation around any of this. I'll be happy to respond and have conversation that way. Otherwise, I'll be reaching out to all of you with a request to rejoin the platform, and hopefully you will, and we can continue to work with you to try to find matches for your startups.
Thanks, Ian.